Well, you too. Well, hello, 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 and welcome to Intercultural Spark, that show about the spark inside you that drives you to spark change in the world through mission-driven businesses and life projects. I am your host, Deanna Schaas. I am the founder and CEO of Intercultural Talk, where I actually work with the same types of people that I talk to each week on the show, which are entrepreneurs, sometimes even micro entrepreneurs, which just means maybe fewer than 10 employees, but it's people that are building businesses and living their lives and supporting families and really making a difference in the world. One such guest today is Elizabeth Ann Atkins. So Elizabeth is a longtime publisher with her sister. I love it. The company's called Two Sisters Publishing. So she is a publisher. She is an author. She's co-written books, like she even co-wrote one with Billy D. Williams. But she also now has created the Goddess Power Show. And she is now consulting with, look, I'm even blushing just saying this. She is working with mostly women, but I guess it could be anyone, to find sort of your inner sex power as a way to really drive creativity and business in the world. So welcome to Intercultural Spark. All right. So one last quick thing before we leave, before we bring Elizabeth on, is our flash exercise. So for our flash exercise, in addition to being a marketer, I am also a group fitness instructor, and there's a little known genre called interpretive aerobics. So every week I like the drama, which really fits with this week's show, of becoming, transforming, like Wonder Woman, transforming from a business person to an exercise person. I'm going to show the exercise, and then I'm going to bring Elizabeth on, and we're going to do it together. So this stretch, I'm going to stand up, move my camera up a little bit. This is actually just an abductor stretch. An abductor is it's your outer thigh. So for the abductor stretch, you just stand with your feet under your hips, and then literally you just push. Oh, actually, that even gets the stretch better. Hello. You just stretch your hip out, and right there, it's a great stretch right on your abductor. So I'm going to bring Elizabeth on and invite her. Elizabeth, do the stretch with me. It's an abductor stretch. So you stand and then you just press your hip out. The hand on the hip is optional. Can you feel that stretch down the side?
Yeah, it feels great.
Yeah, it's right in your abductor, your outer thigh.
I love
it. All right. So at the end of the show, we'll circle back, and at the end of the show, this is really bad. So at the end of the show, we'll circle back and you'll get to guess. So I told Elizabeth that I was going to keep my jacket off because of the theme of the show. And I also told her this show would make me really uncomfortable and blush. I feel very exposed what I'm wearing. In fact, fast story, but it's because this past weekend I was in St. Louis. I was visiting bookstores for my new book, and I came out, I had on it was 106 degrees in St. Louis, so I had on a skirt and a tank top. My mom took one look at me and said, as only a mom can, "Is that what you're wearing?"
No.
She did, but then she goes, I said, "Why?" And she goes, "Well, it's kind of sexy." And so
oh my
what
gosh.
I said to her is I just looked around and I go, all right, because I was like, fine, sex sells. And indeed, I visited 3 bookstores and 2 of them are going to carry the book. So apparently sex does sell.
Hello.
And now you're like doing a whole talk about that. Like
Deanna.
Talk about that. What is the power? All right. Actually, Missy,
gosh.
Great to see you. Missy already says so important, girl power all around. So, it's frozen and no volume. I hope that's on, Missy, I hope that's your end and you can turn it off and turn it back on. Yeah. So hopefully,
Deanna.
hopefully it froze. Hopefully it froze like this.
Oh my gosh. Deanna.
Yes.
That is the perfect segue that exemplifies my mission, because we should not be ashamed or afraid to show our bodies, especially if it's 106 degrees outside.
Right.
But
I'm doing all my body language. Okay.
Right. We are so conditioned, and our parents, they mean well for us, but they want us to cover up because that's safe. It's
Mhm.
safe for us physically because sometimes women who get attacked are blamed for what they're wearing if it's
Right.
provocative, showing too much skin. That's a real thing, and sometimes judges endorse that mindset, and the attacker doesn't get punished.
Right, which is
Then,
ridiculous, like, it's the woman's fault.
then there's
Every time people say that, I always think of that commercial where it's like, "Don't hate me because 'cause I'm beautiful." Remember, like,
right,
that L'Oreal?
yeah,
Like, it's
right.
not. Mhm.
So we're
So
conditioned that it's not safe to be sexy, not to mention
mhm,
our reputations. Slut shaming is a thing. I have a show about it coming up, and it's where people try to take our power away by shaming us for being
mhm,
independently sexual,
mhm.
that
So
whether that's how we dress or act or live.
mm. You know what's interesting about that, and I can't believe I'm saying this on live TV because it also has to do with the woman's body. So actually, I'm sure you already noticed.
Lucky you, right?
All right, I need to say nothing else, but sometimes I think like I'm wearing a tank top and a skirt just like so many other women are. Why should I have to be self-conscious or change what
Mhm,
I'm doing just because of the way my body is?
mhm,
We
mhm.
really criticize like based on what someone looks like too.
Right, right. It's unfortunate and it draws attention. So my curves are lower and in the back, just like okay. And I have often covered it up.
Mhm.
I
Yep.
only recently started wearing clothes that are sexier, shorter, tighter
Mhm.
because of that attention that I did not want. Like on the street, people would make comments about my butt, and I didn't feel safe and I
Mhm.
didn't like it. You want your person, your lover, to like your butt, but all these random people on the street. So, Deanna, this is so important because there's so much shame, guilt,
Mhm.
fear, anxiety surrounding our sexuality as women. It's very, very oppressive.
Mhm.
And I want to make it really clear the Goddess Power Show is about exploring taboo topics that help women live bigger, better, and bolder. Because once we face all these
Mhm.
guilt, shames, anxieties, and such that have been instilled in us from birth, it's not our fault.
Mhm.
Once we face that and we say, no, I am a sexual being and I am proud of that, pleasure is very important in life. And so once we embrace and celebrate that, it boosts our confidence on every level in business, in life, everywhere. And it's awesome. And that's
Mhm.
the goddess power. It's about energy.
Mhm. So how does that work? So one comment and then a question. So one comment is, and I don't know if it was through the one who wrote like The Artist Way, but it was this idea that creativity is creativity, and
Yes.
particularly a woman's ability to create a child
Yes.
within her, like that all of that is sort of along the same it's all the same. Like
Mhm.
creativity in arts is the same as being the idea of creation with your body as
Right.
well.
Right.
So aligning those is
Mhm.
important. So
Mhm.
that's my comment. My question is, so you work with women, not just women, I think, but you work with people to help them start businesses, I think, as you have. How does what's the connection, I guess, between connecting to your sexuality or I guess it's maybe just not being embarrassed about your body and yourself. How does that connect to working with people or just with running a business?
Right. Well, when you feel fully empowered in yourself, acknowledging, embracing, and celebrating all parts of you, it
Mhm,
manifests in your business and everything else that you do. You're not trying to hide anything. This
mhm.
is me. So, very
Wait, and
important.
this is, by the way, this is you on the on your
That is. That's
website.
my
That is
website for
you.
the Goddess
Like,
Power Show
yeah.
podcast. I am
Mhm.
naked and I'm I work out like a fiend. I used to be
Uh-huh.
really fat and feel really bad about myself. And now I feel amazing. And that's part
Mhm.
of my mission as well. Because when you own yourself and turn your
Mhm.
pain into power, you can do anything. And so, Deanna, I want to make it really clear that this
Mhm.
message isn't just about being promiscuous and just being,
Mhm.
having sex with all kinds of people. And that's not it at all.
Mhm.
It's about acknowledging yourself, your desires, and the energy of creation that's inside our bodies
Mhm.
as women. We create people. So, listen, there's a
Mhm.
book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill,
Mhm.
Chapter 11 Sex Transmutation. I practice that a lot. When you channel the energy of creation, your
Wait,
sex
chapter
energy.
11, because isn't that book? I actually have the Audible version of that book, and I could have sworn it was from like the early 19. It's an older book, isn't
It
it?
is. It's an old
Okay.
book, but it's
That
one of the most popular self-help success books ever. And he
I did
has
not know about the sex chapter.
Oh, it's called The Power of Sex Transmutation, and when I first read it, I didn't get it, but then I started doing it, and I get into my most genius writing zone. I wrote this erotic trilogy, Husbands Incorporated,
Oh,
about
wow.
my philosophies about marriage and
Mhm.
relationships and monogamy and such.
Wait, can you put that cover up to the screen? I think my guests would like to see that.
Husbands Husbands Incorporated, our business is your pleasure, and it's with my pen name, Sasha Maxwell,
Mhm.
and it's book 1 in the series. So book
This
2
is
and 3,
fiction, or this is a fiction book?
it's fiction, but it
Okay.
contains my philosophies about relationships, women's power and pleasure, all wrapped into some really juicy stories.
Mhm. How many books do you have? Because you've written a lot of books.
Yeah, I've written 40 books or more. And
40? Oh my
yeah,
gosh, that's
this is my
amazing.
memoir. So I write about sex and spirituality. God's answer is no. Oh, yes! I love it. I love it.
No. Oh, yeah.
That is so cool, Deanna. But that's awesome.
Mhm,
So I'm deeply spiritual and I'm highly sexual all at the same time. And there's
mhm.
nothing wrong with that because we're taught that you're either one or the other, and that's not true. There is this sort of
Oh, that is the idea of that you can't, or that, but okay, so there is the idea of being either sort of this sexual being or this like serious business person. But I would also say that for the longest time, because the workplace, I'm not talking about entrepreneurs, but people working, let's say in corporate America, like, I mean, that is a place where people would hide their Okay,
right.
the reason I keep interrupting myself is as I say something, I realize the answer to it. Is what I'm saying is women hid their sexuality so that there wasn't sexual harassment and things like that. But I now also am once again blaming the woman, let's say if there's sexual harassment in the workplace. So I'm totally wrong. But
Mhm.
that's where I do think there was a lot of suppression because you wanted to be thought of strictly for what you brought to the business.
Correct. Correct.
Oh, but what you
Yeah.
bring to the business is your full self.
Exactly, exactly. So the point is that you can take that power within yourself and channel it,
Mm,
as Napoleon Hill says in his book with sex transmutation. You channel all that powerful energy of creation up into your brain, and it gets you in your genius zone, whether you're in business, in relationships, in your creative space, whatever it is. So there's this energy. And I am an advocate of not squandering the energy
mhm.
by just having wild sex all the time. That's very fun, but it leaves you with
Oh,
nothing.
but you're saying it squanders your energy. And wait, I'm gonna do this. Look at this. Wait, what did you say? Say that
What?
say that again. That first part of that, you said not about sort of not about the squandering part, but right before it was this idea of getting into that zone to be fully present and fully engaged with all that you do.
Right, right. So we have this energy inside of us.
Mhm,
It's all about energy, and it's in our creative areas of our body. I mean, of our creative our lower parts of our body, our sex area. But when you consciously channel that energy up into your brain and use it for writing or business or new ideas or being an entrepreneur, it's genius energy. Genius. On the other hand, when you squander it by just having fun, unless you're trying to make a baby,
mm,
it's just wasted time and energy with
mhm.
nothing to show for it. So my message and mission isn't just about, oh, go have as many orgasms as you can, which is great.
I
But
told you I would blush. Someone just said orgasm on my show. Okay. You would think I was 12 years old. The fact that I'm this old and blushing is actually what's so ridiculous. I'm sorry. Go ahead though. You were saying orgasm.
right, that energy is you're so cute, Deanna. Well, actually, my first guest on the Goddess Power Show
Mhm,
podcast was Laura DiCarlo. She had an amazing orgasm and decided to create devices that would replicate that experience for her. And she met with consultants,
mhm.
engineers, and she actually created a company with devices that mimic human touch to help women orgasm because she says It's not an apple a day that keeps the doctor away. It's an orgasm a day because of it releases hormones that make our skin glow. It boosts our mood. It improves our immunity. It helps us sleep better. It helps us relax. There's power in pleasure. Power in pleasure. And so when
So
you
she literally built a business around sexuality.
she did,
So
Laura
mhm,
DiCarlo, and she's on a mission to level the
mhm,
playing field for pleasure equity, which means there's a statistic about how most heterosexual men orgasm every time, and about 75% of women say they can't without just with penetration. They
mhm.
need clitoral stimulation. And see, like the uncomfortableness that some people have on these topics, I can see you
I
blushing.
know. Wait, I'm like, wait, is that? I think my phone just rang. Well, actually, though, but wait, Elizabeth, here's part of the problem is it not part of the problem, but what I'm realizing is as you're talking, these thoughts go in my head. And what I'm realizing is this whole idea of shaming is that I've got, as you're talking, yes, I am blushing, but I'm also realizing some of the stereotypes that I have. Because when you talked about the woman who said, it's not an apple a day, it's an orgasm a day. How many people have said when someone's irritable, and sorry, I, you see, I even have to say I'm an awful person. I'm not. But you know the phrase, if someone's in a really bad mood, people go like, oh, you know what they need. I mean, so I mean, just anecdotally, people talk about that as opposed to, yes, indeed, that's scientifically proven. And here's how we can address it.
Mhm.
So that's what's actually interesting is I'll say it and be like, ooh, giggly, giggly, whereas someone else is like, no, that could actually be a business. This is actually true.
Right. Exactly.
Do you know where I saw it? The first time I went to Brazil. So, my husband's Brazilian. We've been
Yes.
married for a gazillion years.
Mhm.
First time I went to Brazil, like people sometimes say, like the women in Brazil are gorgeous, like that and like 10 times. I mean, just stunning.
Wow.
But what I realized is originally I was like, oh, but they're so exploited and so terrible until I realized there is such a body positivity and such a like, look, this is me and this is my body. It's the confidence that exudes through women down there that actually like everyone you see is gorgeous because there's such just a matter of factness and confidence
Mhm.
about people's bodies. So I
Mhm.
can see that when I go there in
Mhm.
terms of what a difference it makes.
Beautiful,
So
beautiful.
so because this is a show for business, because this is a serious business show,
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna circle it back to actually to you in running a business, Elizabeth, because you are a very successful publisher. You're an author. You've written books. You have the podcast. How does this look like? And you draw from your personal story. You've
Mhm.
talked about drawing from your pain. So can you just talk about that a little bit in terms of how did your approach to business itself evolve through your personal experience and these different things that you enjoy doing?
Right. Well, that is a really important question, Deanna, because I used to be a ghostwriter for people who were,
Mhm.
like blue pinstripe suit type, very highly accomplished people in business and leadership. And so then I come out with my sex novel, my erotic fiction. That's why I published it under a pen name so that
Oh,
yeah,
interesting. Okay.
I resent that I have to do that, but
Mhm.
I understand the world that not everybody wants to be associated with erotica.
Mhm.
And so, but at the same time, I also write about spirituality.
Mhm. Sure.
So yeah, there is a very important distinction to make there. But I believe that the reason for my success, the reason I'm able to serve as America's book coach and guide people to write a book in 6 months, the
Mhm.
reason I'm able to be a very prolific writer and do so many things is because I am fully awakened in every part of myself, my intellect, my physical fitness, which I work out a lot, my sexuality. There's no shame, there's no guilt, and there is some fear still there, only because I'm aware of the world that we live in for women. And so,
Interesting.
being fully awakened, I bring that to my desk in everything that I do every day. And what that light that glows in me, that blazes, I'm able to ignite in other people. And that's my
Okay.
mission.
So what I'm hearing you sound, and I remember when you did this. Is it America's business? No, I just wrote business coach. It's
Book,
America's
book
book coach.
coach. Yeah.
Okay. Um, what you're saying, which is fascinating, is that you don't have this voice in your head saying, okay, this part's okay here, but this part's not, because that's exhausting.
It is.
That's
It's so
exhausting.
exhausting.
That's
Mhm.
how I actually feel like sometimes, where it's like, oh, you can do this, but you can't do that.
Mhm.
I mean, so you're saying, and it sounds like it works for writing in particular,
Oh, yeah.
that that's part of it. America, I forgot the S,
America's
America's book coach. So for
bookcoach.com.
anyone who actually is looking also, because you're also writing about books, whether it's erotica or anything
Oh,
else.
yeah. And I teach people how to write an erotic novel too. You can learn about that at americasbookcoach.com or at
Okay.
thegoddesspowershow.com. So you see, Deanna, I do all these things. I do so many things. I
Mhm.
do fitness, I do wellness, I do writing, I do teaching, I do my own books, the podcast, and I'm able to do it because again, I've fully awakened all this energy within inside me, and it literally
Mhm.
explodes out when I'm
Mhm.
leading writers to write their books, or when I'm talking about fitness, or when I'm writing myself on the pages, composing. It explodes. It's like a geyser of
It
energy.
feels amazing. I mean, it feels so phenomenal to have all that power to you. Now, Nat is asking, although there's sort of an assumption, an unconscious assumption built in this, how do you avoid not being taken seriously as a
Mhm,
woman entrepreneur? So
mhm.
that begs the question, have you ever felt like you weren't taken seriously as a woman entrepreneur? And then do you care? Or just sometimes I think, well, you just don't go to those people, you go to other clients.
Yeah, so I think that being professional is very important. I
Hmm.
think we should feel empowered to dress the way we want to dress, but understand that if you're wearing a low cut blouse and your cleavage is all hoisted up right here, I, as a woman, can't even concentrate looking at that. So imagine how the men in the room are going to be. Just
Hmm.
know that's how people react.
Hmm.
It's
Well,
just,
with so much now, we're told, and and the Me Too movement is really important because there was some very serious, obviously anything that relates to violence against women, sexual harassment, all of that is terrible, obviously, and it's good that it's being spoken about and addressed. One thing that seems to be missing is like you're almost not even supposed to acknowledge that you notice the opposite sex. I mean, we are animals at the end of the day. Of course, men and women identify with each other.
so wait, I just want to be clear about the boobs that I just talked about. I think I think women should
Wait,
be
they
able.
weren't mine. They weren't mine.
No, no,
Okay.
no. I'm talking
And
about
what
when
was
it's
the
all exposed, you can see the crease, that's not
Oh my
appropriate for a
god.
business meeting. And I don't want to see a man with his shirt open and his pecs. I don't care how good they look. I don't
Mhm,
want to see that in a business setting. It's uncomfortable and it's not appropriate.
mhm,
So,
sure.
but she should be able to dress when she leaves that meeting, take it off, do whatever she wants to do, and
Mhm,
him too. Okay. But it's just to be taken seriously as a woman in business, we have to look professional. We have to act professional. And we also, it's about our language. We don't
mhm.
speak in question marks. We don't,
Oh, I hate when
you know,
people do that. Yeah, and
yep.
a lot of women do that. Yeah, where
If
they
men
end with a
try to,
question mark is that they doubt what they're
oh, no,
saying.
no, no, no.
Mhm,
If someone tries to interrupt you, a man
mhm,
interrupts you, no, I'm not done. Hold
mhm.
on. Listen to
So
me.
how do
Yeah.
you navigate that? Or do you have any specific tips for people? Because on the one hand, you're saying you really need to be fully in touch with with every part of you, including your sexuality. But at the
Mhm.
same time, you're saying, well, but I'm going to use a pen name, or in the business meeting, I might not do that as much. What advice do you have, or how do you guide people on walking that line?
Mhm. Everybody's different. Everybody has a different comfort level and a different reality in their life.
Hmm.
So I would just guide them on what's your comfort zone and what are you trying to change? Because a lot of times our comfort zone is toxic. It keeps us stuck. It
Hmm.
keeps us safe, but it keeps us stuck. So what risk are you willing to take? Like, what if I publish this under my name, Elizabeth Ann Atkins?
Hmm.
What risk am I willing to take to express my full self? And what potential consequences would it have? So every person has to answer that themselves.
Hmm.
Um,
Sometimes I feel like as we get, I mean, nowadays, like if someone looks at me, I'm like, good for, given my age, I'm like, now it's kind of like good for you if you can still like get someone to look.
Right.
at my age. So in some ways, it does feel like as you age, maybe that idea is taken. Well, I think there's two things. It's potentially aging. I could be wrong about that. I do think that the whole Great Resignation and COVID and just all of the threats that are out in the world right now, it does feel like it gives you more permission to say, why not me? Why not now? Are you?
Yes,
Mhm,
totally. So I used to really pretty much dress like a nun, and people would be like, Elizabeth, why do you cover up so
mhm,
much? I would wear these long, loose dresses, and I was just really uncomfortable showing my body, and I'm pretty curvy. And so finally, I don't know, it took work over years to really embrace and celebrate who I am and what I look like. And
mhm.
because I work out so much, I feel really good about my body right now. And so I now wear, actually, I just bought a thong bikini. And
Whoa.
yeah, so it is partly
Mm,
age that you just become comfortable
sure.
and start not caring so much about what anybody thinks about how I feel.
Mhm,
So I've really awakened in my own sexuality, and I feel awesome about it,
mhm,
which means dressing a different way,
mhm,
dressing in sexier clothes, acknowledging that people are looking at me for that reason, which used to make me very uncomfortable
mhm.
because it was scary. It was like, well, what does that lead to?
Mm.
So
That's a whole other subject, and we're actually out of time. That's a whole thing though about boundaries. And what I have learned, and it sounds like you're talking about that, when you sort of dictate how you feel about things, you're setting the boundaries. That
yes.
feeling uncomfortable is because am I in danger because someone's looking at me that way? That's where actually Me Too and so much vocalness about boundaries and no means no, it,
Hmm.
it does actually give us more power to
Hmm.
be who we want to be.
Hmm.
So we need to go back to our flash exercise. So I'm going to ask you if so our flash exercise. Um so our flash exercise was uh we did the abductor stretch. So it was the stretch right there where you stretch the side of your hip
Yeah,
and you're not. Why do you think I picked this one doesn't feel so deeply interpretive, but why do you think I picked that exercise for this show?
because it's sexy.
Actually, I know that was a really easy one.
It's sassy too. Like when you talk, you put your hands on your hips.
It's
So yeah,
totally
it's sassy.
sassy. When I
Yeah,
teach class, actually, I do that stretch every time because if you sit a lot, your abductors, that your
yeah,
hips can get really tight. And
yeah.
so that's why I always tell people if they're uncomfortable, I'm like, come on, get sassy with me. So I do that. This is a bad habit as a show host, but one because I'm asking you a big question that's probably bigger, but it is a good one, which is how would you approach the same idea with someone who identifies as ACE, which I don't know what ACE is, but I'm gonna guess that it's somewhere in the family of like asexual. Like, I mean, is it always about the sex, or is it just making sure that you are who you are all the way?
Yeah, asexual, you
Yeah, it is
still have
asexual.
sex energy. Okay, you still have sex energy in your body.
Oh, thanks.
And
That
you
was
might be at
Nancy.
an advantage because you're less likely to squander that energy with people and random hookups and such. So you have all that energy inside of you. It's like rocket fuel. So make a conscious, and actually this weekend at the Goddess Power Retreat, which at the website, thegoddesspowershow.com, you can sign up for the retreat where I'm teaching you techniques to channel this energy to manifest everything
Mhm.
your heart desires. So
It
please
sounds really
join me.
fabulous, especially for
Thank
people who
you.
are writers or anyone. Well,
Mhm,
you help people with business owners, but
mhm.
just the idea of being able to live freely, not be self-conscious. But the idea of writing, I think you're absolutely right. To be a really good writer, you need to draw from as deep as you possibly can, and you've got to be unself-conscious about it.
Mhm.
So one thing, I'll just show it, and then we're going to say goodbye. But on the website, thegoddesspowershow.com, you can also find Elizabeth and follow her on social media. The show itself, the podcast, is on YouTube. How often does that run?
Oh, it's also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and you can see the icons up there to click
Perfect.
and listen
Perfect.
directly from there. It's a weekly podcast.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. Don't go away, but we're gonna say goodbye to you, but don't leave me so I can say goodbye to you
Okay.
before we leave. I just want to thank everyone so much for joining us today on Intercultural Spark. I didn't do too bad with the blushing. And hopefully that's all okay with connecting to business intercultural talk, because they actually at Intercultural Talk, that's what I help people do. A lot of non-digital natives, but helping people kind of identify with that spark inside them, whether it's running a business or passion projects, but to see that happen and be marketed in real life with digital, intercultural, and real life marketing. So if that is something that you are interested in, I do invite you to join us each week. And if you're watching live, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. Thank you so much for being here. Elizabeth, thank you for being our guest. And we will see everyone next week on Intercultural Spark.